Last night, many of us were at dinner, and it was quite noisy and crowded, and we didn't really have an opportunity to thank some people. And so I just wanted to start off this morning by thanking our two co-hosts, VCU and VCU Qatar, and especially al-Hijr and Joe Seipel, the deans of both institutions. And of course, we must thank the Qatar Foundation, or Qatar Foundation, as I've learned, for sponsoring this event over the years. At VCU Qatar, many of the faculty and staff have been absolutely extraordinary in helping getting this going. And of course, Dina Bangdell, who's been with us from the beginning, first in Virginia and now here, and Valerie Jeremichenko and Micah Khan, who've really made things go. And I am saving last, especially for Ashley Burton, and this couldn't have been done without Ashley's continuous work. So please join me in giving them applause. As you'll see, we have a busy schedule, but Sheila and I, in planning this over the course of several years now, or can I say a decade, have learned that we want to have a lot of time for discussion, not necessarily the kind of formal discussion that people have at the, sort of asking questions and everyone says, can I go to the bathroom now? So we've allowed lots of time for coffee breaks, and there's a lunch break. And all of us are available, and please, feel free to come up and chat with us. I mean, this is what we're here for, and we want to meet you. And so we will start with the first session, first half of the morning session, with two speakers, and as usual, they will be introduced by students from VCU and VCU Qatar. And so first, I would like to ask our first introducer to come up and introduce our first speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am Yumna Abdul Zuhayr, and I am an art history senior and an honor student at VCU Qatar. I am very pleased today to be with you and have the honor of introducing our first speaker, Professor Robert Hoyland. Dr. Hoyland is a professor of late antique and early Islamic Middle Eastern history at New York University's Institute for the Study of the Ancient World. He has conducted field work in a number of countries of the Arab world, including Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and Yemen. He has written a number of articles on early Arabic inscriptions and what they can tell us about the society and culture that produced them. He also wrote Arabia and the Arabs, 2001, which provides a survey of the Arab region and its peoples from the prehistory to the coming of Islam. I am personally looking forward to hearing his views on the birth of Arabic writing on stone. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Robert Hoyland.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and well, thank you for everyone who made this possible. I don't need to name them, but it's wonderful to be here, both at this wonderful museum and at the great city of Doha, where we're being treated very nicely, I'm very pleased to say. Now, you're witnessing an experiment here, because I forgot to print out the paper. So this is going to be my first attempt to read off a screen. So if I suddenly lose the plot here, please forgive me. My title, The Birth of Arabic in Stone, could be understood as referring either to the Arabic script or to the Arabic language. And to some extent, I will be speaking about both. But I want you to bear in mind that the two phenomena, though closely related, are not one and the same. In particular, the Arabic language was in existence long before the emergence of the script that we call Arabic. It was presumably found in many different dialects, used by different groups scattered about the Arabian and Syrian deserts. On the very few occasions that Arabic itself was committed to writing, the script of prestige in the locality concerned was employed. Thus at Daydan, modern al-Ula in northwest Arabia, before the Nabateans arrived there, so something like the 1st century BC, an inscription was carved advertising the funerary monument. Ah, yes, well, just map. A lot of you are from here, so you probably know where you are, so that's not so important. You're down there in the bottom right. The inscriptions I'm talking about are all up the west side of the Red Sea and Mediterranean, starting from Medina and going up to Zebed by Aleppo in the north. Baghdad's just to help you locate yourself. But here's the inscription. Yeah. A lot of these inscriptions look a bit yucky, and people like me spend many, many hours often staring at them, trying to make sense of them. This records the funerary monument of Abd Samin, son of Zayd Harim, which Salma, daughter of Aus, built. What suggests it's Arabic is the alati, the relative pronoun, and then Banaha Salma bint Aus. It's got a kind of Arabic relative clause there, with the use of the what you call the a'id preposition referring back to the antecedent Salma. Nefes is the antecedent. Soul in Arabic, but it tends to mean in a number of older languages on the west coast, more like the place where the soul rests, so the funerary monument, the tomb. The language is Arabic, but the script is the local one in use in Dedan, a derivative of the South Arabian script. From northern Jordan, we have an example of Arabic written in Greek letters. It's a very interesting text, actually. Interestingly, it's not just transliterated into Greek characters, but the Greek endings are used. So if you look at Aus, son of Ud, you can see at the top there, just for those who'd like to start trying to be epigraphers, you can see the Aus, son of Ud at the very top. Ooh, I've got a nice little marker here, so that's good. Start with the A and going across to the Udo. Interestingly, the person knew enough Greek. Udu, the way you do son of in Greek, isn't to use the word for son, but to put the second word in the genitive case. And this guy knows enough to do that. We can only guess at why its author chose to use Greek to write his message. Perhaps he'd spent time working in a nearby city and picked up some literacy, wanted to show off to his fellow tribesmen. Usually in this area, it's basically from the southeast of Damascus, going south, you get a series of haras in Arabic, kind of basalt or lava regions, where the rock has congealed into nice, smooth stone, basalt. You can write on it and leave. In fact, it's beautiful etching material, and it will last for many centuries. And we have tens of thousands of these graffiti stretching, as I said, from southeast Syria all the way down into Saudi Arabia. The particular variety of ancient North Arabian, as we call this collection of dialects, that's used in this area gets called Safaitic. And we know the sort of material that gets found there, that we can help to understand this script, this particular text, because there's a few odd words, particularly in line 4, the odd word here, Zafawa. I put spend the winter because it's extremely common in these Safaitic texts to mention that someone spent the winter looking for new pasture and so on for them. So this could be an attempt to represent Shita in Greek letters, which is not so easy because you don't have a sheen in Greek. In any case, the content fits well with the many thousands of graffiti in the local area that litter this region. We don't know why the authors of these two texts chose to write in Arabic rather than in the standard language of their location. Both of them stand out dramatically from, as I said, many thousands of texts in the area. And this is still a kind of puzzle which we don't understand. Who are the people speaking a version of Arabic, anyway, Old Arabic, as we call it, just to distinguish it from Islamic period Arabic? All we have is these handful of texts scattered at rather diverse locations. The most commonly used script for writing Arabic in these early days would seem to have been the Nabatean Aramaic script. The earliest dated such text that we know of is a funerary inscription from Hegra, so Arabic in Nabatean Aramaic. For those people who like to see the original, it's a nice sandstone cliff face, so it's not a single stone. It's composed principally in Arabic, but with quite a few Aramaicisms. So grammatically, for example, starting off, this is the tune Qabr, and then Sana'ahu Ka'b ibn Haritha. So again, the Sana'ahu, the relative clause, kind of, and most of the general vocabulary, for example, it's for his mother, and it says helikat fi al-Hijr, again, helikat fi Arabic vocabulary. So there's enough here to tell us it's principally Arabic. But a number of the terms are, so for the month, he uses yirah. Yarha is the Aramaic word for month. La'ana obviously turns to Arabic, good language for cursing, La'ana. The Lord of the World, Moray Alma, again, it's more in its Aramaic formulation. So it's a rather funny text. In fact, academics have gone a bit to and fro deciding, is it Arabic with some Aramaic or Aramaic with some Arabic? It's kind of slightly difficult to be sure. Now, Aramaic was the prestige language while the Nabateans ruled in the area, and it kept a certain high status for a while thereafter. The most famous of this category is the Namara text from southeast Syria, recording the burial of Mar al-Kaith, son of Amr, king of all the Arabs, Malik al-Arab Kullu. And this kind of rather nice use of the absolute accusative, al-maf'ul al-mutlaq, at the bottom, وَلَمْ يَبْلُغْ Malik مَبْلَغَهُ. He's self-styled king of all the Arabs. We don't know whether other people believed him, but then that's the way of rulers sometimes. It's now preserved at the Louvre, the actual stone. Very nice, clearly written. I'm going to come back to this because I'll shortly be talking about letter forms. And we have a third inscription also with bits of Arabic. This is from southern Palestine. Starts off as a nice standard Aramaic inscription. He says Dakir at the bottom, which means may he be remembered. And then we have the owner, and it mentions Abodat, Allah, Aboda the god. It's the principal Nabatean deity. But then he switches for two lines into Arabic, which sound like, again, rather a lot of argument about the exact meaning for Yaf'al la fida wa la afra. This is kind of my translation. And it's got a number of odd features, which probably mean it's a dialect of the area for Kun Hano. God knows what that is in the Allahu Alam sense. Now, in recent years, epigraphic surveys in Western Saudi Arabia have brought to light a number of graffiti that provide clear examples of the Nabatean Aramaic script in transition towards what we would think of as the Arabic script. In particular, these transitional texts often manifest a clear horizontal lower line upon which the letters rest and by which they are connected. So some of the changes in this evolution from Nabatean Aramaic have to do with the way it's actually aligned. This isn't a brilliant inscription, but you can see under these words a very clear line, horizontal line maintained, which is very different from this, which by and large has no clear alignment. This change in alignment, the maintaining of a horizontal line under the individual words, is responsible for some features of the Arabic script. Now this is going to get a bit technical, so I'm going to ask for your concentration. The classical Nabatean scene, or sheen, which is an upright stroke with two crossbars. So there's one, upright stroke, two crossbars. Now if you lay that down, as in salam here, you effectively have the Arabic sin or sheen. The classical Nabatean ayn, which is a stroke at, let's see if we've got one here, is moral case. Do we have? I'm not sure if I've got Amr here. Let's go a bit further back. Where did I suggest finding it? No, I can't see Amr there. Oh, okay, here. Amr here, Ibn Amr. So you have a line at about 45 degrees, and then you have a kind of hook here. And again, if you then put that a bit further down, so this is the word abd here. Here it's still a bit up, but you can see that it's starting to look more like an ayn. Here's obeyed. Again, starting to look a bit more. And then by the time we get to this one, rather nice ayn. This is still early, this is only around 500 AD, but you can see that nice development towards what we would call an Arabic ayn. One last one. You know, I forgot to ask you, what time do I go on to? Actually, one thing I didn't know. 9:45, right, good, yeah. I could go on for hours, you see, but I don't want to keep you. And the classical Nabatean final ya. Sorry, lots of jumping. If I was cleverer with PowerPoint, I'd probably manage to. That's a ya here. They're very upright. But again, if you put it down, here is the word balair, so we're seeing it going down more. And if you put it a lot later, that'll go flat, and you've got a kind of nice Arabic. Yeah, just a minute, I'll go a bit later, up again. Probably got one here. Here it starts to go down. There's a particularly nice one that I liked, though, in the this one, Zuhayr Kitab Zaman Tawuffiya. Here, you see the ya goes nicely right under, and looking more like a proper Arabic ya. I'm giving my secrets away, sorry. So by this change of alignment, the Nabatean Aramaic alphabet gets transformed to the Arabic one. There's a few others, as I say, that start to the meme, which is kind of enormous, and that starts to become smaller with time. Keeping this line means that, so this is the word obeyed, that's the ya, so that's not part of it. And it maintains these, which, the ba and the ya here, it maintains them into more simple diagonal, vertical teeth, if you like, which again resembles the Arabic more. The ha is interesting. This is the word fahm, and it has this strange box. So I'll give you some of the forms. So it starts developing from this to this, and then in early Arabic you get this interesting kind of form which gets called al-Hijr, often eye of the cat in Arabic, and that's kind of early. Because when I say Arabic script, I don't mean what any of you are writing today. I mean as it is written in the 1st century of Islam. What often gets called Kufic script, though it's a rather misleading term. So the shift isn't so much, as you see, so in the Aleph, which is this kind of rather round thing with a small tail there, again, gradually the tail gets smaller, and then you go towards this style of Arabic, of Aleph in the early Arabic inscriptions. We don't actually know. I say Nabatean Aramaic script that it's coming from, but we don't actually know for sure whether these texts that we're looking at are really in Aramaic or Arabic. They're kind of a bit too simple. To take this rather nice one that was found recently by Ayla at the top of the Red Sea, it just says simply Ana, Adi, Adiyu here, Ibn Tha'laba al-Malik. Kind of mixture of form. The alifs are still not really maintaining upright. Knife. El, the meme's getting smaller, they're very nice upright. Lam. and particularly the final ha is very easy, and the ayn. But with such a short text, Arabic and Aramaic share a pretty similar word for I, eno, in Aramaic, ana. Ana can be written, as you see, with this pause in Arabic, with a ha rather than a long alif, but it's not impossible for Aramaic either. So we don't really know for sure whether these are actually Arabic or not. So going on a little later, we get, as I said, Arabic in Arabic script. So that happens in the 6th century, that we first see inscriptions that we recognize as being properly in Arabic script, or it's substantially diverged from the Nabatean Aramaic enough to feel that it's properly a new script. This text from Zebed, southeast of Aleppo, dated 512 CE, is a short addition to a Greek Aramaic bilingual text inscribed on the lintel of a martyrium dedicated to Saint Sergius. So that's just the main text, the Greek and these Aramaic, and then you have just lots of signatures written along here. Lots of guys called Sergius wanted to have their name written on a church dedicated to Saint Sergius. Wow, cool, church named after me. So you see here the Sargu, Sin, Ra, Jim, and Wow. Sad, again you get the nice Ayn. The Dal is still very square for Arabic, but it's recognizably going towards Arabic as we would know it. How it starts off, unfortunately a little bit missing there, bin Nasr, maybe writes al-Ilah rather than Allah. So you get the nice lam alif, lam ha, al-Ilah. Another guy called Sargis, so there's about 4 guys rushed up called Sergis to stick their names on this. The next very famous text from Jabal Sayf. You see this has actually the same form of the ana I, this, with a ha in pausal form. Ana Raqaim Ma'arif al-Awsi, and Arsalani al-Harith al-Malik al-Usais. It's been sent as a kind of armed guard. And then, particularly important, is our first monumental script, monumental text in Arabic. Greek is not here being added, Arabic is not being added as a mere addition to an existing text. It's part and parcel of the main text. In fact, it's the dominant text. Arabic must have been done first. It goes right over onto the left side, and the Greek has to fit round. So it's on a church. I hope it's still there. It's a really beautiful little village about 30 miles south of Damascus. It's now rather well incorporated. Somebody's made their house out of it. And when I went there, a 16-year-old girl turned up and proudly was able to read it to me, which I was very impressed. And if you look at the actual text, you can see, again, it's kind of recognizable. Here we have Anna written as we would like to see it, Sharahil ibn Zalim. He says, Banait, Dhal Martul, just there rather than ha there, so it's still some slightly different dialectal features. I love this text. I use it for teaching sometimes when I'm talking about late antique environment to the rise of Islam, because you don't just stick your inscription in your language up on some random building. It implies a whole backstory. You know, if you start writing your name up here on the museum outside, I imagine the authorities can say, hey, what are you doing? So you would need to be someone. So this is indicative of a Arabophone member of the elite who's now made it, you know, he's made it into Roman society, and he does what you do when you get up into the elite. You start building grand buildings and sticking your name up. So the Arabic script develops from the Nabatean Aramaic script. Constant writing of Arabic in the Nabatean script led to the evolution of the latter, as writers introduced changes to make their task easier and their texts less ambiguous. And it's this evolved form of the Nabatean script that we call the Arabic script. Such a development is not likely to have occurred as a result of writing only a handful of texts. So it's very probable that there were many such inscriptions, and almost certainly documents as well, since changes in script tend principally to occur on soft media, on which pens may run free, rather than on hard media like stone, which severely constrain would-be writers. So what led to this new development, and who was responsible for it? There are three processes going on in this 5th, 6th century that probably played a part to varying degrees. The emergence of Arab client kingdoms. Many of these pre-Islamic Arabic texts mention kings. Namara, Ayla, and Jebel Sais, for example. And the Haran text was commissioned by a philarch. That's how the Sharahil ibn Zalim is described in the Greek part of the text. Such characters could plausibly have promoted the use of Arabic, endowed with a measure of power and resources, and perhaps also with a sense of Arab identity, especially if we think of the king of all the Arabs in the Namara text. Since some were important allies of Rome, who commanded troops and acted as local power brokers, it would be natural to suppose that they at least had a rudimentary administration, and therefore scribes at their disposal. They'd need to write to governors and Roman commanders and governors. We get this nice text from a contemporary observer in the 540s, Procopius, who describes how the emperor Justinian, to counter a particularly powerful Arab chief on the Persian side, he appointed al-Harith, son of Jabala, from the tribe of Ghassan, to rule over, be the top guy in responsible for the different Arab tribes of Arabia, including up to southern Syria. The other contender would be Christian missionaries. In the 4th century, the languages of Coptic, Armenian, and Palestinian Aramaic also began to be written for the first time. This was done so that the key Christian texts could be preached to the masses, most of whom would not have known a high language such as Greek, and so it was made available to them in their own vernacular. Could this motive also explain the emergence of the Arabic script? We certainly have many, many tales of Christian holy men going out and converting the Arabs, as you see from this particular one. Unfortunately, whereas we have many Bible translations and hagiographies in Coptic, Armenian, and Palestinian Aramaic to illustrate this point, we have no such evidence for Arabic, though there are a few points in favour of this argument. So we do have all these accounts of Christian missionary work. We also know that Syrian Christian church authorities were involved to an increasing degree with an emergent Arabian Christianity. In particular, in Najran, in the southwest of Saudi Arabia, a number of the local bishops and priests had actually studied in monasteries in Syria, like Keneshrei. And a number of the martyrs of Najran, a hugely celebrated event across the Christian world at the time, when the Jewish King of Himyar kills Christians at Najran. A number of these were actually from Syria. Thirdly, the Qur'an's intimate familiarity with stories and characters from the Old and New Testaments, and particularly the fact that it can just allude to the stories without having to give any explanation, suggests that either the whole Bible existed already in Arabic, or at least extracts therefrom, and that this material was already quite familiar to the Qur'an's audience. And thirdly, the creation of the province of Roman Arabia. The Nabatean kingdom extended from Dedan and there up to, well, Bostra was the capital in red, but it went right up to southern Syria. So pretty much all the territory left of the line. And then, but the more deserty areas, so not Palestine itself, which is more on the coast, the greener areas, so the kind of drier areas. This was all the Nabatean kingdom, which was then converted, taken over by the Romans and simply renamed Provincia Arabia, the province of Arabia. From the use of Arabic legal terms and toponyms in 1st, 2nd century papyri from the southern Dead Sea region, and from the 6th century Petra papyri, we know that Arabic was one of the languages spoken in this province. And this is corroborated by a few literary references to its existence. The famous Jerome actually went there from the west. He actually says that he learnt some of the Arabic language so as he could make comparisons with scriptures in Hebrew and Latin. All of these processes interlink, so there's no need for me to argue which one is more likely. A good example of this interlinking is provided by the career of Abu Qarib, son of Jabala, brother of the more well-known Ghassanid king, al-Harith ibn Jabala, who, as we saw earlier, was appointed by Emperor Justinian to be in charge of all the Arab allies of the Roman Empire in the 540s. A 6th century Syriac manuscript from a monastery near Palmyra was copied, so it asserts, when Abu Qarib was king, a reference to the fact that in the 530s, Justinian had entrusted him to provide backup to the governor of the southern portion of Roman Arabia, modern South Jordan. In this capacity, he sent a diplomatic envoy to Abraha, king of Himyar, in 558. As we know from a number of literary and epigraphic texts, the Ghassanid elite were Christians. And so we see the three factors that I propose to underlie the emergence of the Arabic script coming together in the person of Abu Qarib, inasmuch as he is a Christian Arab ruler in the province of Arabia. For this reason, he acted as arbitrator in a dispute between two church deacons at Petra concerning the sale of a vineyard, as we know from the papyri that was miraculously preserved at Petra. I would take my hat off to the people who read these texts. They were preserved remarkably by a fire which kind of carbonized papyri inside an amphora, and cleverly read by a group of Finnish papyrologists. The papyrus says that the documents concerning this sale were drawn up in Greek and then unfortunately one of these holes appears, but I like to think that it said Arabic, since that would make the most sense, given that we have evidence that Arabic was spoken in Petra at this time. So, a quick look at the Islamic period. Certainly, so the Arab conquests, which brought the... Oh, actually, no, I will just mention this. I'm skipping because I know Jonathan's giving me hard stares and wondering whether I'll finish on time. No, I'm joking. I'm okay, good, right there. Okay. So we see the gradual rise in the importance of the Arabic language through the 6th century. In 568, Sharahil ibn Zalim establishes the Church of St. John to the south of Damascus and emblazons above its doorway the first ever monumental Arabic inscription, taking its place proudly alongside Greek. And only a short while later, the Prophet Muhammad receives revelations in Arabic, the first time, as it's made clear in the Qur'an, that it had been used for this purpose. It could have been revealed in what the Qur'an calls the Ajami tongue, and there were apparently some, designated al-Ajamin, who called for this. Both of these points mentioned in the Qur'an. It's implied, however, that this would not have facilitated the clear exposition and understanding of the Qur'an's message, and so it was revealed in the Arabic language, lisan Arabi, lisanun Arabiyon, as an Arabic recitation, Qur'anan Arabiyan. Evidently, Arabic's time had come. And certainly the Arab conquests, which brought the area from the Pyrenees to the western edges of modern-day India under Arab rule, dramatically improved the fortunes of Arabic, making it, over time, the language of prestige in all this area. Yet Arabic's fortunes were not instantly transformed. The bureaucracies of the former Persian Empire and the former eastern provinces of the Roman Empire continued to function in Persian and Greek, respectively, until the reign of Abdul Malik. We have relatively few documents in Arabic, and on stone, we have only a handful of graffiti. This very nice one from 24 Hijra, Ana Zuhayr كتبت زمن توفي عمر سنة 24. For me, kind of studying the rise of changes across from Nabatean and Aramaic, it's kind of interesting. So this is the al-Hijr style het that we see, just the kind of two squares, a little upright. See the meme still quite large at this point, and so the very nice ya going underneath. And one can remember the ayn, how it's developed from the earlier kind of 45-degree angle and hook. The only exception So another just simple graffito. Allahumma ighfir li Juthaym ibn Ali. Again, the nice ya. You can see really there the hook is almost still there on the ya here before it goes that way. And again, that same style of het. Ibn Hubayra. Wa katab sana tnain wa khamsin. Really, really simple text. You wouldn't know already by now the Arabs are ruling all of Iran, Iraq, Syria, Palestine, Egypt, and you wouldn't know that this is the best that comes out in Arabic at this time. The only exception is that's slightly more monumental, but not really, is a dam inscription of Muawiyah. Sorry, that didn't come out. I corrected that later. Muawiyah, Taif, in 58. So it's a little bit more monumental. هذا ساد لعبد الله معاوية أمير المؤمنين. So it's a little bit more substantial, but it's just a rock. It's just a rough rock. It's nothing special. It's not nicely placed up. And it's just following the contours of the rock. It's nicely done. You know, Muawiyah tells you to do something. You're not going to do a bad job. So, you know, they make an effort, and it's quite well written. But you can hardly call this monumental, and it seems very lowly for people who now control a vast empire. This all changed with the accession of Abdul Malik. He saw at first hand the terrible destruction and loss of life wrought by the decade-long Second Arab Civil War, and he realized that if the young Muslim state was going to survive, it needed to bring a degree of uniformity to its rule. He decided to implement at once the establishment of a single coinage across his realm, replacing the imitations of Byzantine and Persian coins that had been in circulation until this time, and to decree that Arabic should be used for all official purposes, thereby ousting Greek, Aramaic, and Persian from the position that they had occupied for many centuries. If Arabic was now to be used as an imperial language, it needed to look the part, and it is from this time, the 690s, that we see a more polished form of Arabic script being employed, what often gets called the imperial Umayyad style. So Dome of the Rock, obviously, most famously, very much the same letter forms, but the alignment is what changes, and also the proportionality. There's a strict proportion kept between ascendant letters and the lower letters on a relatively a 1-to-3 basis. And of course, very dramatically, coins. Coins make a huge difference. Everyone uses coins. So suddenly everyone, or from Morocco to Afghanistan, is using not necessarily gold, but it's also the same messages on silver and copper. So it reaches everyone. It must have had an extremely dramatic impact upon people. Like Greek and Aramaic before it, Arabic was now a language of empire. And like them, it was also a language of revelation. As the language of the Qur'an and the language of the Prophet Muhammad, many of those who converted to Islam were eager to master Arabic, so as the better to comprehend their faith. Thus, the first biography of Muhammad was by Ibn Ishaq, his grandfather a prisoner of war for an Ain Tamr in Iraq. The earliest surviving Quranic commentary is by Muqatil ibn Sulaiman, both of Persian parents. And the first Arabic grammar was by Sibawayh, a native of Balkh in modern Afghanistan. And on their tombstones, Muslims from many different backgrounds proclaimed allegiance to their faith and adherence to its principles in the Arabic language. This is probably my favorite Islamic period, graffito. We tend to use graffito if it's written on stone and not simply and isn't a properly monumental inscription, but it's absolutely beautifully done. Here you can see what I meant about the proportionality between the lower letters and the ascendant letters. It's very dramatic. And this becomes quite a common phenomenon for the period where people simply write verses of the Qur'an. This is from the Ya Dawood and Ja'alnaka Khalifatan fil Ard Litahkum an-nas bain an-nas. Some of these are quite fascinating because it's written by people who want to make it clear that they belong to this newly ascendant community. And they'll sometimes make in references. For example, there's one from exactly the same period from Medina, which just says, Amantu bima kadhaba bihi ashab al-Hijr. Of course, if you know the Qur'an, that this is a reference to the people who refused the message of the Prophet sent to al-Hijr. But by their allusions, by their simple statements of Quranic verses, they are effectively all Muslims. They're often on the pilgrimage road, this one as well, I think, is coming into Mecca. But it's a recognition of a new community that has found a common ground. And as Sheila said yesterday, one of those common grounds, if you like, is the Arabic language. Thank you.